Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Lawrence's Let's Plays. Today I'm bringing to you part 4 of my epic tier list. Today I'm bringing to you the fighter class. To my returning viewers, thanks so much for your continued support. If you're new to the channel, that means you. Thank you so much for stopping by. Nothing left to say. I'm Lawrence. Let's play. So first off, I will tell you, this took a little while to put together. The mage one's going to take a while too because unlike the previous tier lists, the mage and fighter class, I think fighter has 15 heroes and mage has 16. So this took a little while to put together. Thank you for your patience and waiting for this video. Without any further ado, let's jump in here. So we're going to be going over 15 fighters. They are Wrath, Komodo, Gluttony, Cyrene, Ain, Scorch, Daemon, Dowin, Cyclone, Voroth, Deimos, Estrid, Aatrox, Jenkar, and Vladov, the epic Lord of the Chaos faction. So let's jump on in here. First off, we're going to start from the bottom, work our way up to the top. Kind of the way I prefer to do it. Makes sense. Start with the not so good heroes or the really trash heroes and then move our way up to the better heroes. So first off, we're going to jump in here. We're not going to talk a lot about this guy because he sucks. This guy is trash. In fact, you'll see in my tier list, he has his own special grade. It is G for garbage. This guy is complete nonsense. He's no good. He does virtually no damage. And unless in the future, the devs make dodge be a mechanic that makes sense, him having a 20% dodge on his talent is really nothing. So maybe in the future, dodge becomes something important. Maybe that's something, a mechanic they introduce to a far better hero, or maybe they just give him a buff and he gets better. But he is straight garbage. It's that simple. You don't want him. Tier list. So I listed him as, he's actually not listed, you see on the screen. He did not fit in the screen. He really wasn't worth fitting in my screen on this spreadsheet. But as indicated in a previous video, if you see dashes, that basically means not usable or you're just not going to use them. So all across the board, just imagine he's on this list and he's dashes all the way across and he's got his own special overall ranking, like I said, and it's G for garbage. Moving along, the next hero we're going to talk about is, where did I find her? Cyrene. Cyrene has something that she does bring to the table. Her damage is whatever, but she does restore 12 cost immediately and applies crit rate increase to 2 allies within 2 tiles lasting for 6 seconds. That duration with skill ups goes up to 9 seconds. The thing with that is that, yeah, that's nice for ground-based fighters, but if you see like her attack range, it's all going to be based on ground-based fighters. If she was providing cost regen for platform units where we get the best DPS units or marksmen or mages, then that would be really nice and she could certainly be higher on this tier, but because she does not, she provides it to ground base. That's why I've put her so low. The next attack deals 80% damage and applies to enemies in range every 14 seconds. This can be reduced to every 10 seconds, and it does provide CC with a stun, so that's something. But again, and her cost is really low. I will point that out. She only has a cost of 11. Going to the tier list, you'll see that I listed her as cost regen for team. I'm sorry, I gotta look at close here because it's hard to read on my laptop. Slow with meh damage. Campaign, usable, sure. Certainly better options. She's a C. GR1, she's a D. You're not really using her. GR2, C, usable, sure, I guess, but better options. GR3, you're absolutely not using her. In Arena, you're not using her. Tide, you're not using her. Void Rift, I gave her a D. Maybe you could use her. Faction, she's a D. You're absolutely not using her in Guild Boss, and overall, she is a D-. And the next one we're going to talk about is Daemon. Daemon did recently get buffed, so I thought it might make him better, but he's still pretty meh, to be honest. Greatly reduces the revival time. This is his talent. Every 1 time of revival increases cost by 4 and damage by 10%, stacking up to 2 times. So he can get a permanent boost after he's deployed twice of 20% throughout the battle, which is kind of nice. When deployed, now this is what I really like though, is that he deals 240% damage to up to 3 by enemy nearby enemy units. That increases up to 80 more percent. So that goes to 320% AoE damage when you just simply deploy him. So that's pretty cool. I do like that, but there's not really much to say about this guy. Mad damage, he's not great. But I did put that he's basically a one-trick pony. Multi-enemy damage upon deployment. I gave him a C in campaign. I gave him a D in Gear Raid 1, a C in Gear Raid 2. You're absolutely not using him in Gear Raid 3 or Arena or Tide. Void Rift gave him a D. Faction gave him a D. Guild Boss, you're not using him. He's also a D-. And then we're going to go to... Let's go to Gluttony. Let's talk about Gluttony. I love his design, I will say that. And he belongs to one of the best factions in the game, which is Nightmare. But there's far better Nightmare units you could use versus this guy. But fighter, he's a normal fighter. 100% damage one, I mean, nothing to write home about. But this is interesting. His manually activated alt crazily nulls the enemy with the highest HP and range. He's doing true damage equal to 5% of the caster's max HP per 0.5 of a second in 5 seconds. He does inflict the target with stun, so he has some CC. The stun we know is really underpowered versus slow. Slow is a much better CC. And restoring the caster's HP by 10% for 5 seconds. Goes up with multipliers. Every 6 attacks, the next attack deals true damage equal to 20% of the caster's max HP to 5 targets within range, inflicting the targets with stun, restoring the caster's max HP by 15%. Gluttony increases his max HP by 10%, his Devour and Grow passive, and grows 10% larger for every hit. This effect can stack up to 3 times. What I will point out about him, if you look in his hero details, he has the highest base HP of all the epic fighters. He also has, I believe, the 3rd or 4th highest base attack, so he is pretty solid. He has great survivability by increasing his HP cap, and he does decent damage, I guess. But again, there's just far better options in that faction. So Gluttony, I listed him as he does have the highest base HP, very high attack, and he does provide true damage. So I'm giving him a C for campaign. I'm giving him a D for Gear Raid 1. I'm giving him a C for Gear Raid 2. Gear Raid 3, Arena, Tide, not usable. Void Rift, D. Faction, D. Guild Boss, you're not using him. He's also a D-. So then we're going to go to our next hero, and we're going to talk about Scorch. The thing with Scorch is if you're just after damage, well, there you go. Scorch that's all he's about, damage. But it is interesting to note that his damage is magic based, which is interesting for being a fighter. And he is really loud. It deals AoE damage to multiple enemies 3 times, each time dealing 85% damage. Can be skilled up 10% more. His overheating alt increases his own attack by 20% for 25 seconds. This goes up to 50% for 25 seconds with a skill cost minus 100. Initial rage cap's not bad at 800, so that reduces to 700. His burning passive is really, really nice. He increases his own battle, or his own attack in battle, by 10%, and with skill ups that goes up to another 10%. So that's a 20% automatic just throughout the battle. He's just doing more damage, which is quite nice actually. You look at his hero details, he's very squishy. Having less than 15,000 HP, he's got very low health, but his attack is not bad at 304. He's a solid damage dealer all around, I would say. Scorch. Let's talk about Scorch. I said AoE on basic, permanent attack boost on passive, which is quite cool. Campaign, I gave him a D. I gave him a D in Gear Raid 1 and Gear Raid 2. You're just not using him in 3. Arena, I gave him a D. I gave him a D in Tide, D in Void Rift. Faction, I gave him a C because there's not a lot of options for ground-based damage dealers in Infernal. Guild Boss, I gave him, you're just not using him, and he is also a D-. Now we're going to move on to Aatrox. Aatrox from the Chaos faction. So Aatrox cannot be healed by allies. That's already a negative on him. I don't like that. You cannot heal this guy. His revival time is greatly reduced, and this is his talent, of course. Upon each revival, the revival time will increase by 6 seconds and damage by 5%, stacking up to 3 times. So if you've bring him back multiple times, he can get a permanent boost to his attack of 15%. His basic is really nothing to write home about, 110% damage to an enemy. After death, generates a ground effect area, dealing 70% AoE damage per second for 10 seconds. Airborne units, of course, take half the damage. The damage increase goes up, the duration goes up, the damage increase goes up another 20%, so it does become 90% AoE damage on his passive. Also, he's less cost in the arena as well, and you see his cost is only 7, so he's crazy low for cost. Does pretty solid damage all around. I listed Aatrox as basically he's Cerberus with less damage and reduced cost. Because if you look at Cerberus, they basically have the same kind of effect, producing a ground-based damaging effect, AoE damage, and then when they die, they also produce this AoE damage. He's basically, that's what he is. He's Cerberus with less damage. He's got reduced cost, but he does do some nice damage. He does some nice AoE damage. So I put him as a C in campaign, certainly usable. Gear Raid 1 a C, Gear Raid 2 a C. You're really not using him in 3. You're really not using fighters unless they have ranged ability like a Zilla2, like an Arrogance in Gear Raid 3. Arena, he's getting a D. Tide, he's getting a D. Void Rift, he's a D. Faction, he's a D. You're not using him in Guild Boss. And all around, I just gave him a D. Just gave him a solid D. Decent damage, but nothing really to write home about. And then we're going to go to Komodo. Let's check out our boy Komodo. Komodo already automatically gets a bonus because Komodo is fusion material for Abomination. So, Komodo, let's talk about him. 75% damage to one enemy 2 times. That goes up another 10%. So, that's 85% damage to one enemy twice. It's not too bad for a single target for the damage he does. Increases attack speed by 20 for 35 seconds when attacking, inflicts bleed on the targets. What I like about this is, unlike Salazar, I will say this about him. Unlike Salazar, Salazar has a percentage chance to bleed, but Komodo, it just simply says inflicts bleed. So it's a guaranteed bleed. Each attack has a 15% chance to deal 230% damage. The trigger chance does get increased by 5 up to 20%, and the damage goes up another 30%. So 260% damage on a 20% chance to proc that. It's not too bad, not too bad at all. If you look at his hero details, he is also very squishy with 14,000 HP. His attack is not bad. He's pretty solid all around. I do like the fact that he does bleed his enemies, and it's a guaranteed bleed, unlike Salazar that has a percentage chance to bleed. So what I said about Komodo, multi-strike with bleed. Campaign, I'm giving him a D. I'm giving him a D in Gear Raid 1. I'm giving him a D in 2. You're not using him in 3. Arena, he's a C. Tide, he's a D. Void Rift, he's a D. Faction, I'd give him a C. He's a C because he's a damage dealing nightmare unit. Again, one of the best factions in the game. Although I wouldn't prioritize him over better options. And then in Guild Boss, you're just really not using him. But you could use him, so I gave him a D. Overall, I gave him a D+. And next, we're going to talk about Ice Boy here, Voroth. Here's the thing with Voroth that really confuses the hell out of me. It clearly says in his description, as hard as the tundra from whence he halts, Voroth's great axe sweeps the battlefield, dealing AoE damage. Why has this guy not got like a freeze? Come on, devs. Give this guy like a freeze like our boy, the new best defender in the game, Broke here. Like, he looks like he should be able to have some kind of freeze effect, some kind of freeze, dot damage. But he doesn't, alas. Deals 100% damage to one enemy, 5% chance to land a consecutive hit. So he does have a 35% chance to hit that enemy a second time, increasing the damage to 110. Now, this is what's really confusing to me. Increases attack speed by 800 and starts to deal rapid dual wielding strikes, each increasing attack speed by 100, stacking up to 1400. This effect lasts for 11 seconds. You see the duration goes up an additional 4 seconds. The skill cost gets reduced by 400, which is quite nice to get it down to 900, because the max rage cost is very high at 1300 to get it down to 900. But here's the thing. Like, it doesn't show multipliers. It doesn't say, like, he's going to do X amount of damage, which is kind of weird. I think his ult's kind of confusing. When taking damage, there's a 10% chance to cast a Whirlwind Slash. Deals 80% AoE damage when on the field, reduces damage taken from AoE skills by 5%. That's actually quite nice. With max skill ups, he takes 20 additional % less AoE damage, so 25% less AoE damage. His Whirlwind Slash goes up an additional 14%. So that's actually not bad. What I will say about him, what's really solid, he has the highest HP. I'm sorry, not the highest HP. I stand corrected, Gluttony has that. But he has the highest base attack of any epic fighter. And 5,119, like, it's not... I'd say it's not even close, but actually Wrath is about 4,700. But 5,119, no one else is reaching 5,000 as an epic fighter. That's actually really good. It's really solid. Let's jump into my tier list. My boy Voroth, highest base attack, AoE passive with AoE damage reduction. I gave him in campaign a C. Can't talk Gear Raid 1 a D. C and Gear Raid 2, you're not using him in 3 or Arena really. Tide, I gave him a D. Void Rift a D. Faction a D. You're not using him in Guild Boss really. And I gave him a C rating overall. Now let's talk about Daylin. Daylin, however you want to pronounce her name. Daylin, 100% damage to one enemy, but increases attack by 30% and crit damage by 15% for 10 seconds on a 400 max rage cap. Attack increase does go up another 20%, so that's a 50% attack boost, and crit damage of 30%. Duration can be increased to 12 seconds. That's quite a bit. That's quite a bit of attack boost and a nice crit damage boost. Also, what makes her so good and valuable in a team is she restores 13 cost for all allies every 30 seconds. That can be reduced another 5 seconds, so then it's every 25 seconds. And the cost regen goes up to 15. So she is a cost regen type of ally. She has extremely low HP. Keep that in mind if you're building her. You're going to want to put some HP on this girl because she is squishy. She's very, very squishy. She's going to die. I forgot to change my screen. I'm so sorry. There's Daylin. And now here's the tier list. Daylin. Buffs her attack and crit damage. Cost regen for team. I gave her a D in a campaign. She's a C in GR1. She's a D in GR2. You're just really not using her in 3. Arena, you're not really going to use her. Tide, she's a C. Void Rift, she's a D. Faction, she's a C. Guild Boss, you're not using her. And I gave her a C minus. And I forgot Voroth's rating is a C. And I gave her... I had that backwards. Voroth is a C minus. I got Daylin as a C. My apologies. Let me jump back out of here. I do want to just pause for a moment and say that this tier list is kind of hard to put together because I'm trying to think about newer players like free to play players in mind, but also kind of getting an idea, having played the game for a while, being about in mid-game as far as my progression in the different modes in the game. It's difficult to put a tier list together like this and just simply say, hey, this is exactly who you need to choose. Again, this is all objective. This is one guy's opinion. But I also base a lot of this tier list on heroes that I have, heroes that I would assume that other people have 2 months into playing the game now since global launch. So keep in mind, if you're brand new to this game, and like free to play, some of these heroes, if you get them and you don't have better options available, then their ratings can certainly go up. This is just based on a combination of newer players, but also players that are about the level where I'm at in mid, or even if they're in late to end game. So with that being said, let's go into the next hero. Daylin, okay. Now I'm going to talk about Ain, who is the Epic Lord of the Watchers. And that alone gets him bonus points just because he's the Epic Lord of the Watchers, and as everyone would pretty much agree, I think unanimously, Watchers needs a lot of help. Watchers is the worst faction in the game. I would say Esotericist would probably be second. Let's see. What's really cool about him, what I like in his talent, the hero and allies in front of him gain pen increase and damage increase. That is automatically ignoring 10% of defense and magic resistance, and they also gain plus 10% damage. That's quite nice. Triple dash passive. Every 7 basic attacks, the next attack deals AE 5% AoE damage to 3 enemies in range, launches 2 extra hits, and knocks the target back. Again, we know knockback isn't really that impactful in this game. Blessing of the Light, he provides the stat boost to all his allies of 10%, periodically increases damage by 20%, healing multiplier by 30% for 30 seconds. The more faction allies they are, the more frequently this triggers. You'll see he's got 15,000 HP, his attack is not horrible. Here's the thing with Ain, I do like that he provides this. Pen increase, on the talent, pen increase, and the damage increase. Pen increase 10%, ignoring defense and magic resist of the enemies, and the plus 10% damage increase to his allies. And that's permanent. That's as soon as you put him down, and I really like that. That's really cool. Again, but the problem with that, much like what I pointed out with Cyrene, is that he's only doing that to allies in front of him. In front of him meaning on the ground. He's not affecting your units that are on platforms, which is where you get the most DPS in this game, which is going to be your marksmen and your mages typically. So if he could like spread out his range to where he could include like 1 or 2 maybe platform units, then I would really like him a lot better. But anyway, here's Ain. Permanent defense and magic ignore for all allies. Plus, I think I did make another note here. Let me pop in here real quick, ladies and gentlemen. As soon as I find Ain again. Was it his Awaken? Yes. His Awaken 5 increases Ain's crit damage in battle by 50%. Is quite nasty, but you do have to get him to A5 to benefit from that. But that is a lot of crit damage for a boost for one ally anyway. Caption or campaign, I gave him a C. Gave him a B in Gear Raid 1. Gear Raid 2, I gave him a C. You're not using him in a Gear Raid 3 Arena or Rolly Tide. Void Rift, I gave him a D. Faction, I gave him... I'm trying to see my own rating. Gave him a C. Guild Boss, you're not using him. He is a C+. And now we're starting to move into the cream of the crop, in my opinion. These are the final 5. The final 5 are going to start out with 5th place, and that is going to be Vladov. Vladov is the epic lord of the Chaos faction. He also has dual faction with Nightmare. Again, one of the best factions in the game. And so for that, he kind of gets a little bit of bonus points. The thing I like about Vladov, 75% damage to 1 enemy 2 times with each attack. This is on his basic, so he's hitting 1 enemy with a good bit of damage. He transforms 12% of his HP on his Savagery manually activated alt into attack. Meanwhile, lose HP by 10% of current HP when eliminating a target. He recovers HP. So he's got a weird mechanic, and that's the thing with Chaos that I'm not a fan of, this whole, like, I'm going to lose health to do more damage. But the thing is, like, at least he has some self-sustain, because when he gets a kill, he is actually getting HP back. So he does get up to recoveries with skills. It was like 10% more HP back, and he does do some more damage based on HP lost. 30% chance triggered by attacks, deal 150% AoE damage to up to 5 targets in the front semicircle area, and apply bleed effect on the targets. Again, really, really impactful, much like Komodo, the fact that he is guaranteeing bleed, unlike someone like Salazar. And I'll go in here and show you, so I'm not just like talking nonsense. If you look, chance to inflict bleed, Salazar has. So Salazar is fantastic, but his is a chance to inflict bleed. But unlike his chance to inflict bleed, you've got Komodo and now Vladov that it's just a guaranteed bleed. So that's really, really, really impactful. His arena cost, this is something that's typical of all the Chaos faction, in fact, is that they have reduced arena cost, so you can get him in at 5 cost less. Of course, his Lord skill, he's providing a damage increase of up to 40% when his allies lose 30% HP. So pretty solid, does very nice damage, and he is a Lord, so that's kind of a bonus, and he's dual faction, and he provides bleed. I put bleed on passive. Salazar with a death wish. That's what he is. He wants to die, but before he dies, he wants to do as much damage as he can, and he's going to do that with his bleeds. So we got campaign, I gave him a B. Gear Raid 1 a C. Gear Raid 2 a B. You're not using them in 3. Not really using them in Arena over other options, I don't think. Tide C. D in Void Rift. Faction, I gave him an S. Guild Boss, I gave him an A, and overall, he is a B+. And then we're going to go to our next girl, and that's going to be Estrid. Let's talk about Estrid. I really like Estrid a lot. The reason why I like Estrid a lot is because she provides defense reduction, which is a very rare debuff in the game. Not many heroes have it, and it's very impactful. Let's talk about right here, her Blade Storm manually activated ult increases attack speed by 70. Each attack deals 240% AoE damage to enemies in range. This effect lasts for 15 seconds. It can be skilled up to last 20 seconds, quite a long duration. Skill cost, max rage is very high, 1200, so we want to reduce that, and with skilling up we do. We reduce it down to 1000. Damage multiplier, another 40%. 280% AoE damage for 20 seconds, quite nice. She also has a basic, or a talent here on her basic, that has a 25% chance of landing 2 strikes instead of this single target attack. Each attack has a 20% chance of inflicting defense reduction upon the enemy. The chance does go up to 30%, and the defense reduction goes up another 10%. And you'll see defense reduction is very, very impactful in this game and very rare for a hero to have. It's a 5-second duration. Max skill ups, it goes to negative 30% defense reduction. She has got very nice HP. Her attack is also, I stand corrected, she has 5,162. Look at me making mistakes. I'm so sorry. What was Voros again? Is he still the highest? Oh! 5,119. She's 162. Estrid, my girl, coming in number 1. After the mistake, I stand corrected. She is the highest base attack in the game. So, pardon me, Voroth is second. Estrid, defense reduction on passive, solid AoE damage on all. And we'll go and add that she is the highest base attack out of all of the epic fighters. Campaign, she's an A. Gear Raid 1, I gave her a C. Gear Raid 2, I definitely gave her an A in that. I think she's pretty solid. Gear Raid 3, you're just not using her. I'm not really seeing a use for her in Arena with far better options. Tide, I did give her a D. I think that's a D. Hard to read. Void Rift C. Faction an A. Guild Boss, you're really not using her. And overall, she's an A. Oh boy, we're getting up there, guys. Getting to the cream of the crop. And now we're going to go in and we're going to talk about my boy. I like this guy a lot. If you have him, you'll understand why. Jankar. I believe Jankar is the 3rd best epic fighter in the game. Let's go over his skills a little bit and I'll explain why. First off, he has a talent. When blocking enemies, applies Curse to them. What does Curse do, Lawrence? Well, I'm going to tell you. It's awesome. It prevents units from performing basic attacks for 5 seconds. That's quite impactful and quite a long duration to prevent an enemy from attacking. Attacks up to 2 enemies in range, dealing 100% damage. So he's actually attacking 2 enemies, dealing up to 110% damage. When activated, this is his Strength of Abyss Auto Ultimate. Extends attack range and allows each attack to target 1 more enemy. So now instead he's attacking 3 enemies. 1 more enemy. Admittedly, additionally, there is a 30% chance to land a heavy slash with each attack, doing 150% damage. Lasts for 15 seconds. The multiplier goes up an additional, which is really crazy. Strange that they came up with this. 110% more damage. And also heavy slash chance is increased to 40%. Skill cost goes down 100. It's a very low max rage cap. Minus 100 takes it to 600, and he starts with initial rage of 300. And also, Cursed Boon Auto. For each adjacent enemy inflicted with Curse, the hero's attack is increased by 3. And his chance of triggering a heavy slash during the ultimate is increased by 3%. This effect can be triggered by up to 5 enemy units. Attack increase goes up, heavy slash chance goes up. You'll see he is very solid, does quite a nice bit of damage. HP 15, 962, attack 3344, kind of on the low side, not super high. But that curse cannot be denied. It is very, very impactful to prevent an enemy from attacking you, and attacking enemies, attacking up to 3 enemies rather on his basic is quite solid. So I put multi-hit on basic, solid damage, and curse. A+ for campaign. GR1, C. GR2, I'm giving him an A. GR3, you're not using him. Arena, I'm giving him a B. Tide, I'm giving him a C. Void Rift, a C. Faction, A+, because Esotericists don't have a lot of options. Guild Boss, he is just not going to be used. A+ overall. That brings us to number 2. Let's go to number 2, guys. Number 2 is going to be the werewolf himself, Deimos. Deimos is so good. So unbelievably good. First off, let's talk about his talent. Basic attack deals additional damage equals 2% of the hero's max HP. Deals 75% damage to one enemy 2 times. Increase that by 10%. Goes up to 85% damage. A lot of single target damage. Increases max HP by 100%. And attack and defense by 20%. Each basic attack lands 4 consecutive strikes. This effect lasts for 20 seconds. Attack increase goes up. Max HP goes up. Attack goes up. Defense goes up. Skill cost minus 200 is very important because his max rage cap is quite high at 1100. So to reduce it down to 900 is quite nice. Excuse me. Passive tearing. Each consecutive attack against the same target increases damage by 10% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 6 times. The duration of the effect will not be refreshed after reaching the maximum number of stacks. Stacks will reset upon switching targets, which was what makes him so unbelievably good in Guild Boss. The amount of damage that he's pumping out, and he's never going to switch a target because there is only one target when you fight a Guild Boss. Damage stack increase per stack goes up 1, 2, 3, 5 additional percent. So another 5% makes it, the damage is actually 15% now. Yeah, he's solid all around. One knock on him, I will say, is his HP isn't very high, so he's a little bit squishy. His attack is decent, but he's someone that with Awakenings, he just gets so much better. Specifically, tearing stat cap +1 on Awaken 3. Also, when tearing reaches full stacks, attack ignores 15% of the target's defense. As we know, defense reduction is very, very impactful in this game. Let's go into my tier list. Deimos, great against Guild Boss, great damage, and I put Awakenings with a bunch of exclamation marks because that makes him so much better with Awakenings. He is S+ all day long in campaign. Gear Raid 1, I gave him a C. Gear Raid 2, definitely solid B. He's a little squishy with his HP. Arena, I gave him an A. C for Tide. Void Rift, I gave him an S. Gave him an S in Faction. Guild Boss, he's S+ all day long, and overall he's an S. And that brings us to the final hero in the video, guys. Final hero. And I say that the #1 best epic fighter in the game is Wrath. And there's for a couple reasons why, and you'll discover that when I go over to the description of what makes him so good. But let's talk about Wrath for a little bit. Talent, Wrath's crit rate plus 15%. So he automatically gets a crit rate boost of 15%, which makes it easier for gearing him. That's one bonus. A crit hit has a 20% chance to attack 2 times quickly. Very nice. Damage is typical, 100%, one enemy. Heavy Boil, auto alt. Auto cast, when activated, increases damage dealt by 30% for 30 seconds, during which time deals 90% damage to up to 5 enemies for every 3 attacks. AoE damage +5, damage +5, +5, +10. 10, 15, 25% more damage. It's a good bit of damage. And also the skill cost does get reduced minus 100. Max rage cap is extremely low. Like, he casts this a lot and it's all auto, so you don't even have to worry about manually activating it. So you're going to reduce that by 100. It goes down to 300. His initial rage is 150. So it does not take him long to get into that, and it lasts for 30 seconds. It's a long duration. The next attack deals 6% additional damage after every 4 attacks. That damage is just more damage. 10, 10, 10, 10, 40%, so 100% more. And also, he's a Lord. He's got the Lord skill he's providing his allies, the attack boost, or the attack speed boost, I should say. Also, the healing effects are reduced, which kind of sucks about this faction. I'm not a big fan of that. But the attack speed is quite impactful. It can go up to 35% because the faster your attack speed, the more your heroes are attacking, the more damage they're going to do. Make sense? Makes sense. Okay, so he is fantastic. Going into his awakenings, the biggest one for him, two big ones. A3 inflicts burning on targets that take AoE damage from heavy blow, which is his ult. So then he's providing burning, so he's providing some dot damage. And then when heavy blow is triggered, the hero restores HP equal to 30% of the total damage dealt, which is bonkers. The ability to self-sustain is really good. So Wrath. AoE on his ult. A3 provides burning, A5 self-heal, and he's free. He is 100% free. You get him, I believe, after day 14 login. He's amazing. I mean, he's absolutely amazing. Like I said, you get him after day 14. I think it's day 14 login. You also get soul stones of him that will automatically enable you to take him up to these higher levels, the awakening levels that just make him so much better. Campaign, S+ all day long. Gear Raid 1, he's a C. Gear Raid 2, he's an S+. Gear Raid 1, Gear Raid 3, you're not really using him. Arena, he's an S+. Tide, I gave him an S. Void Rift, he's an S. Faction, he's an S. Guild Boss, he's an S. Overall, he's an S+, guys, all day long. I don't know. I don't think it's hard to argue between the top two, in my opinion, between Deimos and Wrath. You guys might have chose to put him, maybe Wrath right below Deimos. Maybe Deimos you would think would be number 1. But that's my video, guys. Appreciate the hell out of each and every one of you guys for stopping by. If you did enjoy this video, if it was helpful and informative, please do smash that like button. Also consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. Make sure to keep it locked right here at Lawrence's Let's Plays for additional Watcher Realms content coming your way real soon. With nothing left to say, I'm Lawrence. It's been Lawrence's Let's Plays, and I am out of here. Take care, everybody. See you real soon.